the word Christian mean? Little Christ, or Christ-like. So, right? So this music is supposed to be Christ-like. Now the world, they don't know who Jesus is, so they would probably say yes, but would Jesus Christ write that song? Would Jesus put explicit content or words in a song? If not, then we as Christians, little Christs, Christ-like, should not either. But the world has so warped what it means to be Christ-like because they don't believe, like you said, that deconstructing Christianity, they don't believe that the Jesus Christ in the Bible is really who Jesus really was, and there's something lost in translation or interpretation, so that Jesus couldn't possibly be like that.
Right.
So who cares what type of music we listen to or write?
Which we'll talk about in a second. So if you're going to match up the conduct of what we're reading, how does that match up with the Timothy verse? Does it seem to fit more? Yes.
Well, unholy as a beginning. Having a form of godliness.
Well, they label themselves like Christians. I guess that's the only route.
Well, years ago, if you did a good deed for somebody, you must be a Christian. Well,
Yeah. So let's do this last question. Should there be a noticeable difference between the world and Christians? Yes, right? Yes.
Was there a noticeable difference when Jesus walked on the earth between Jesus and the rest of the Israelites? Yes. Well, they were Israelites. Yeah. Right? There was a noticeable difference. Yes.
Oh, sorry.
and the apostles were changed people. And especially a lot of them, like the new believers in Corinth, and some of them used to go to there was Ephesus, yeah, and the Temple of Diana.
Yeah.
And some of them probably had multiple wives,
Yeah.
so they had to make some hard decisions.
Yeah.
And that was a big dispute, to be circumcised and so on. Paul says, Paul had 4 things to do, so on, like this. But
Yeah.
they used to say, if your lifestyle matches Christ, you hardly will have to say a word to get their attention. Today, it's like, they're just another man. They're just another...
Yeah.
In with the bunch.
Yeah. Sister Violet?
I was just thinking, could you say that they're making a mockery of the Christianity and don't even realize that's what they're doing?
Sure. So let me give you, like I said, because this is something that's kind of something I'm more passionate about. I was listening to someone, they were talking about some of the responses. And so here's what they said. In society today, right, 20 years ago, on normal over-the-air broadcasts, you never heard the D word, the A word, the whatever word, right?
Right.
Now, over-the-air broadcasts have no problem saying the B word, the D word, and they'll say it as much as they can, get away, right? So what they're saying is now, well, here in Canada, though, it's different. In Canadian television, you can actually say other words, the other swear words, and it'll be fine. So what they're saying is this, and this is the music executives and stuff, are saying this. They're just being authentic, because today's people say those words, do those things. And so they're just being authentic. They're not playing, oh, I'm a Christian, I sing these really godly, spiritual songs, and yet I'm a sinner on the other side, right? And so they say, well, they're just being real. That was one of the arguments I heard. They're being real. And today's music, all you have is swear words. And trust me, we know from listening to what my kids listen to, our kids listen to, you're like, if they play songs in the car, which are junky anyways, to me, because I like Christian music, I don't want to hear about anybody's girl or whatever, who cares? I have my girl, I don't need anybody else's girl. Okay. Right? So when they play these songs, they're like, oops, can't play that song. Oops, can't play that song. And you know why? Because they're swearing. And they know I don't like that stuff. They know Wendy does stuff like that. So you're like, well, these people are arguing, well, since all the world is like that, we're just being authentic and real. And so if we use this and that here and there, that's okay because we're real.
Okay, but in my former life, say I was a thief in my former life. When I come to church and pickpocket you guys and steal your money, I'm just being real, okay? I mean, that makes no sense.
Because we're supposed to be striving for godliness, not looking back at our sinful life and what we do. So I should be actually ashamed that I put something out there that had swearing in it, because that's not living godly. Because again, when we look at that verse in Timothy, that is what always is for me been, because we used to look at that one as for end times. We're in end times because da-da-da-da-da, right? And so for me, it's always like, hey, is this the way that I'm portraying myself? If I am, then I have to, I'm just having a form of godliness. I'm not really trying to strive to be righteous like what God has called me.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, no, you said it. And denying the power that God can change us.
Yeah.
And we have to be separated from the world.
Right, because that's why there's supposed to be a difference, right? A noticeable difference between us and the world. There's something different, right? One of the things that people notice about me is I don't swear.
Right.
Always, in high school, in workplace, whatever, they notice I never swear. I went to a factory and worked there one summer, whole summer. It was the worst place in my whole life. It made me realize I'm never going to be in a factory. Why? Because every other word someone said was a swear word. And there's a beep and 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 a beep, right? That was pretty well all it was. If there was that beeping thing for it, that's all you would hear, right? And then they were like, oh, you're weird, you don't swear. Why do I swear? I don't need to. I'm smart.
I don't think it's a good example for the young people that really don't know Jesus, you know, that they should be setting a better example for them to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Because a lot of the young people, they follow a lot of the singers, so.
Yeah, they do. And that's different. All the singers that they follow. Even some of them who used to be Christians, you know, that are out there. It's just sad. It really is. Yes, sir. Right.
Well, the church has always been countercultural. Good things have only happened because of the church. School systems, hospitals, missionaries.
You're heading into my next article.
Good job.
Sounds good.
Smooth.
So, you know, my whole thing is, for me, I'm one who likes to listen to new music. But the problem is, and you know, I have conversations with Melanie about this and stuff, is it's hard to find good Christian music nowadays.
Yeah.
Because I'm not one who listens to worship music because it's not my style. I like worship in church, but I'm not, the way it's on the radio all the time and everything, it just becomes too common. And so you lose that joy when you've heard the same song 100 times and then you come to church and you sing it. There's one song that we did not do for so long, 10,000 Reasons. 10,000 Reasons we never did in the church for a long time here. Do you know why? Because it was done, it was on every radio every 5 minutes. It was done in every service that people would do. And we're like, we can't do it because we're so sick of it, right? And that's what happens when you make that comment. The other thing is, you're missing the songs that talk about real life. Like, there's no songs barely anymore that talk about real life situations. Like I said, there's that song that Petra did, Fired Up, you know? You want to get fired up for God, or, you know, Take Me to your Leader. That's a Newsboys song. It talks about going to God, you know? So you're bringing people to your leader. You know, there's songs like that that are out there back before that you can't find today. It's very rare that you find it. So like I said, if you heard of someone like Casting Crowns or For King and Country or some of the others, they do that. And that's wonderful. Amen? We're running out of time, so let's keep going. All right. The next article. Parents resist state's move to tear down the nuclear family. This is from James Lasher in mycharisma.com. That used to be Charisma Magazine. This is a website version of that. And so I just want to read a few things from this article. Oops.
What would that mean? No, I didn't touch it.
All right. California's legal landscape stirred as Attorney General Rob Bonta filed a civil rights lawsuit against a school district, sparking debates over the role of parents and the government in children's lives. Bonta's legal action comes in response to a policy adopted by the Chino Valley United School District, affecting over 2,600 students in San Bernardino County. The policy, implemented in July, mandates teachers to notify parents within 3 days if their child requests gender-related changes, such as using different names or pronouns or participating in activities opposite their biological gender. Okay, so what was happening is this. The school district is saying, hey, you know, if a student comes to us and says, oh, I want to change my gender, or I want to be using different pronouns, or I want to be involved in, like, I feel I'm a woman, I want to be in girls' sports or whatever. Within 3 days, they have to inform the parents that this is what the child has brought up. Okay? So that was what the policy was. However, so this is now what this person is saying. What is it, Attorney General? Each student deserves an educational environment fostering safety, privacy, and inclusivity, regardless of gender identity, Bonta asserted in a press statement. The district's forced outing policy is claimed by the Attorney General to impinge on the privacy rights of LGBTQ students and infringe upon the state's constitution. So here in California, what's happened is they are very open because it's a very liberal state. And so they're like, hey, if your child wants to do anything, that's not up to you. You don't have a say. If they want to transition into something else, we will help them. The government will help them. Okay? You don't need to know as a parent. If your child wants to have sex or do whatever, wants an abortion, all those kind of things, we don't have to tell you as a parent. We're just going to provide those things for the student. Okay? But this policy that the school board is saying is that, hey, you know, we should inform the parents that this is going on. Okay? But this district attorney or attorney general is saying that it's a forced outing policy, meaning you're forcing the student to come out as whatever when they don't want to. And it infringes on their privacy rights as students. Now, remember, we're talking about students. Who's still responsible for these students?
Parents.
Right? So if your kid does something, the government's coming after you. Police are coming after you. However, if the kid wants to change whatever they are, you have no right to say anything about it.
You don't even know.
Right, you won't even know about it. Okay, but they're saying, hey, we should let the parents know, which is really odd because this is California, it's not Texas. Okay? So critics argue that this approach tramples on the rights of parents to make decisions regarding their children's upbringing, a sentiment deeply rooted in the Bible. Proverbs 22:6 states, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. This perspective champions parental responsibility in guiding children's paths. Furthermore, the debate delves into the essence of parental rights enshrined in passages such as Ephesians 6:4, parents do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. The Bible underscores the pivotal role of parents as primary caregivers and spiritual guides. The ongoing clash spotlights a broader concern about government involvement in family affairs. The prevailing sentiment among many Christian parents is that children are a gift from God and that their upbringing and well-being should be entrusted to parents, not to the government. Okay? And so I just wanted to bring up those two verses that they mentioned in the article. Proverbs 22:6, start children off in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not turn from it. Okay? And then Ephesians 6:1-4, and I took 1-4 in this case, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Okay? So, I have a couple of questions for you on this. Who did the Bible say should be teaching the children and why? parents
In the Lord.
in the Lord, right?
I think
And
that's
why?
very important.
One thing that says it's long life.
If the children obey. Or honor their mother. But parents were saying, why should parents teach the children?
So you won't turn away from the Lord and the Lord.
Okay.
But they brought them into the Lord, the parents, and they took care of them when they were small. So they have the wisdom from the Lord to teach them, to raise them.
Okay.
Because they know the Lord.
Yeah. Yes.
I think formal education is a very new thing, when you look at the very beginning of time. And we know that early learning, or children before they're 6, even as early as infants, they're going to learn more in that time. And when I'm talking about learning, it's foundational things, brain waves, different connections in their brain. They're going to learn those things in those 6 years and then build on them. So especially at that time, children under 6, they didn't go to school. There was no formal teaching education. It was done at home. So that's why they say to teach them in the Lord everything that they need for life in that first 6 years, so that you're starting all those early routines, all those early rules per se, way of life, how to do whatever. And then if you do that in the Lord and do it properly in the first 6 years, that child will be more successful. If they don't have that grounding in that early years, that's when you see children that have difficulties, whether it be mental illness or behavioral or any of those types of things, because they've already built those connections in their brain, and it's harder to, you can, but it's harder for you to disconnect and change the path that the brain is going in after that time. It's so easy to make those positive early connections, and that's where the parents come in, or family as a large come in.
Right. And I think it's very important. Well, let's go to the next question. Can others teach our children? Can others teach our children?
Yes. I do. But I do it in the Lord, see?
So can others teach? Like, who can teach our children? Who else? Grandparents? Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
A responsible person,
Right.
Sunday school teacher, some teacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, that goes back to parents, right? At those early years,
Yeah.
I mean, whoever your child comes in contact with can potentially teach your child something directly or indirectly. That's why it's so important that parents regulate who their children interact with, or what their child interacts with. Whether it be a person, a movie, TV, whatever it is.
So what has happened today is because 2 parents have to work, right? By the time the child is at 2 years old, 3 years old, what age can they go into daycare?
6 months.
6 months,
But
right?
by the time they get
So-
to me, at 4, I'm telling you, especially if they go to daycare, whatever, their path is already, not determined for them, but they're already
Moving along that
along
path.
towards
Yeah.
that path.
So it's very important, right? That's why I always say here in the church, children's ministry is very important here in the church. If we have something that is dynamic and children want to be here, that is a wonderful thing, right? But if a child comes into a church and goes, it's boring, it really is for them. I know that's going against what I talked about on Sunday. Well, I'm talking about parents and adults when I talk about that. For kids, it's not like that, right? They can't sit through something like a sermon. They can get bored easily. Because they can't
Some children can.
Some can, but
Yeah.
you know.
When I got cake, he didn't want to come down to the children's thing.
Right.
He sat there and listened, and he knew everything what you.
That's because Joel's a dynamic speaker.
I'm his uncle too. But you know, most children, want to have something that is going to get them interested in the Bible, right? Because it's not only, there's all these different supplemental places because, well, the last thing I want to ask is, should the government mandate what our children should be taught?
No,
But they are.
they are.
Right? So what do we have to do? We have to fight against that because we do send our kids to school. Right? Now, thankfully, we do have Christian schools and Christian opportunities that are out there, homeschooling, whatever it is. But when it comes to our school system, they're going to teach that the LGBT thing is fine. They're going to teach that, it doesn't matter what kind of person you are. If you want to be a cursing person, that's okay. Like there's not even any, anybody remember when they used to have spankings in school? Right? They used to have discipline in school. There's no discipline. Now what is it? Detention. Who cares? Because there's enough movies out there about kids skipping detention or just goofing off in detention. It doesn't work because there's no discipline anymore, right? So where do kids have to get that? They get it from home, from family members, and it should be here in the church. So even on days like today on a Wednesday, there should be something for the kids because the parents don't come because they say there's nothing for the kids.
Right.
Well, there's stuff for the kids out there. Right? Parkwood has something going on, which is where Allison is right now helping out. Right? So send your kids there and then come here. Whatever. Like there's a lot of things. But what happens is if we do not take control of what we are teaching our children and what is taught to our children, right? Then where are they going to be? Where are they going to be? Because the government is going to say this. Like this Attorney General. You know what? They have the right to do whatever they want. If they want to wear their pants over their head, that's okay. They should be able to do whatever they want. Can they do that? I don't know. Yes.
On another side though, just to bring up, because we're doing current events with this, actually the Maritime provinces right now are trying to put a bill through that any child that wants to change their preferred pronouns or gender or whatever, if they're under 16, they need written parental permission. And it's the same thing this governor is doing, that the government leaders are pushing back, saying the same thing, that, if you do that, it's not, it's infringing on these children's rights and this and that, but nothing about parents. And like you said, the parents, if this child, God forbid, because we saw it in Michigan. I know it's a little different circumstance, but
right.
If this child goes into the school with a gun and starts shooting up, they're going to look at the parents. But parents' hands are tied more and more and more, and children are growing up with more and more and more behavioral issues, mental illness, all of these things, more and more and more and more, but parents' hands are tied.
And when they have a mental problem and you ask the government for help, they don't want to give it to you.
No.
Or the waiting list is so long that
Exactly.
by the time it's like, oh, there's a spot available for your child. My child's 36 now. And it's just, there's not enough resources. And again, harping on early years. If we get the children in their early years, the chance of success is exponentially higher.
That's why I'm glad Kia likes me. So at least I could have that. All right. We're running out of time, but I've got one last thing, which I was hoping Matthew would be here because this is more up his alley. This is something called ChatGPT pitches 10 new Christian movies. There's an article on Relevant Magazine by Emily Brown. ChatGPT is an artificial intelligence kind of software. And so what you do is you throw some questions into ChatGPT and it'll give you some answers. So you can even, I think Matt did it once with the youth where they played around with songs or something. And they were making up songs. They gave it criteria, and then they came up with some songs, right? Some Christian songs. Yes, it was songs. And so they would just, throw some criteria into this ChatGPT, and it would come up with songs. So this is what they did. And so just for fun, I thought, why don't we do this? and see, okay, this is what they did, and see if, this is what they said. ChatGPT is getting bigger and bigger, changing every industry from education to songwriting to journalism. So we thought we'd give it a challenge to changing the entertainment industry. We asked the bot to come up with 10 new Christian movies, including a title, a brief plot, and even some potential actors or actresses.
It's
Okay?
gonna be hilarious.
Interesting.
So, and again, I wish Matthew was here because this is right up his alley. Because he always says Christian movies are terrible. And for the most part, they are. So, what I want you to do is, when you see this movie information, just let me know if you would watch it, and you know, if you'd be interested in it at all. Okay? Again, this is something they threw into an AI generator, and this is what they came up with. Okay, first one. Heaven, help us. And here's what the plot of the movie is. When a well-intentioned but bumbling pastor, played by Nicolas Cage, takes over a struggling church, he enlists the help of a skeptical but savvy parishioner, played by Melissa McCarthy, to turn things around. Would you watch that kind of movie?
I mean, Nicolas Cage is in it, so yes.
Melissa McCarthy is in it, so
So
no.
no.
Yeah, but she's funny. She would like fall over the pew or something.
She's not funny.
She's kind of funny.
She's kind of funny.
So, anybody would watch this one? I would watch it.
I mean, it would be a comedy, so comedies are funny.
And it's Nicolas Cage, so definitely gonna be a comedy. All right, next one. The Last Temptation of Christ and His Best Friend. When Jesus, played by John Cusack, returns to Earth and reunites with his childhood best friend, played by Jason Sudeikis, they embark on a wild adventure that challenges their faith and their friendship. Would you watch this one?
Yeah. I love John Cusack.
I probably wouldn't.
I've seen the title previews and it's just it doesn't interest me at all.
I think this one, because it's AI, would probably have hints of heresy in it. I don't know if you watch that one.
Probably. Anybody else? All right, next one. The Holy Grail of Love. When a lovelorn Christian, played by Anna Kendrick, goes on a quest to find the perfect mate, she discovers that the real Holy Grail is learning to love herself and trust in God's plan.
That sounds nice. I don't know. Right? You're looking for love in all the wrong places and you finally find it in God's plan for your life. I don't know.
It would be one of those Hallmark movies.
It would be a Hallmark for sure.
That's why I would not watch it.
I probably would, because it would end up being on one of those channels, you know. And
He'd watch it because I would put it on.
And there's nothing else to watch. Anybody else? All right, next one. Bibleopoly. When a group of board game enthusiasts accidentally summon a demon while playing a Christian-themed version of Monopoly, they must use their faith and strategy to defeat it.
Yeah!
Very good.
So, anybody watch that one?
I love
So, who would watch that one?
You have to send these to Matthew so we can see them.
Yeah. All right, next one. Holy Rollers. Holy Rollers. When a group of misfit Christians, played by Jonah Hill, Michael Cera, and Emma Stone, start a roller derby team to raise money for the struggling church, they discover the joy of teamwork and the power of prayer.
I don't like those actors, but it's a good premise.
Yeah.
Roller ball.
Sounds a little different, right? A little different. I guess they can bring some money. I don't know. Keep going?
But roller derby is a violent sport.
Yeah, it's the joy of teamwork. And probably they need healing
Why
after,
do
so
you
that's
not
why
trust the other team?
that's why you need the power of prayer. So they need some healing after. All right, a few more. Saving Christmas from aliens. When an alien race threatens to destroy Christmas, a team of Christian holiday enthusiasts, including Tim Allen, Kurt Russell, and Candace Cameron Bure, team up to save the day.
I would watch it, but they've all been in Christmas movies, that's why I was
Yeah,
interested.
but I wouldn't watch it.
That's right. I was a little surprised they didn't include Bruce Willis. So, who would watch that one?
No.
Nobody? Some people? All right. A couple more. The prodigal son-in-law. When a free-spirited son-in-law, played by Chris Pratt, comes to live with his uptight Christian in-laws, played by Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks, he learns to embrace his faith and family in unexpected ways.
That's a good one.
Oh,
I'd watch it. It's got people I like.
I like Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, I guess, yeah. Maybe I'll give it a chance.
It reminds me too much of Meet the...
Meet the Parents or...
No, well, yeah.
These are just ideas. This is a computer figuring out what we may want to watch, right? I'm like, okay, maybe, you got it. I don't know. All right, Bible boot camp.
Uh-oh.
When a group of new recruits at a Christian boot camp face off against a rival camp of heathen delinquents, they learn the true meaning of turning the other cheek.
No, it's going to be one of those teen movies.
Right? Yeah.
All right, I think there's a couple more. Or maybe this is the last one. Godzilla versus the Holy Trinity. When a giant monster starts wreaking havoc on a city, a team of priests, pastors, and nuns team up to defeat it in the ultimate battle of faith versus fury.
Yeah!
But with actors!
I know, it's like the Bibleopoly or whatever, right? Double feature. I would watch those in the double feature at the drive-in.
Yes. 3D.
Yes.
Is it in Japanese and there's just...
Yes.
I watch the old Godzilla movies.
Right.
It has to have subtitles, yes.
So-
There's a lot of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe this is the last one. Saints and Sinners. When a snarky atheist, played by Rebel Wilson, infiltrates a group of holier-than-thou Christians, played by Kevin Hart, Tiffany Haddish, and Dave Chappelle, she discovers that everyone has flaws and that true faith is about acceptance and forgiveness.
Okay, there's no way those three actors are playing Christians.
No.
No, Dave Chappelle.
Oh yeah, Dave Chappelle.
No.
Well, Kevin Hart would either.
Yeah.
They may be.
Oh, that was it. All right, that was the last one. But I just wanted to end off, since we had a couple of discussions that were a little bit more heavier. I thought we'd finish off by having something that was a little bit more humorous, yeah. And so remember, that was a computer saying this is what maybe you would want to watch. And in some cases, it sounds better than some of the Christian movies that have been in. Mind you, I have to admit, lately, they've done a lot better with the Christian movies, and so that's been wonderful. I remember one time they were showing, nothing wrong with Billy Graham, but they were showing the Billy Graham movies at the university, and we brought some guys to one, I remember, and we went to the Wendy's on Neuron Line afterwards, and they were like, hey, how'd you like the movie? And they went, it was terrible. It was predictable because they had your turn to Jesus moment and all those kind of things, right? And so they saw right through their university students, and so we used to say those are really boring, but it's still nice, you know, to hear that. But lately they've been doing movies that have been both promoting the gospel without having and I hate to say it this way, hammer you over the head with it. You know, as a Christian, I don't need to hear the gospel story for a half hour. I know the gospel story, so it's good to have some entertainment that enlifts me or encourages me, right? Nothing wrong with the gospel message again. I'm all for the gospel message. But, you know, sometimes we tend to just we have to throw it in. It's like someone saying to me, someone told me once that you have to throw in the gospel every time you preach, right? And I said, well, then I'm not listening to God, because one time I did it. One time I did. I was like, well, God, this person said I had to put in the gospel message. So I took another 10 minutes and did the gospel message. And afterwards I was like, I didn't tell you to say that. Right? Nothing wrong with the gospel. Don't get me wrong. Right? But when we're in a crowd of believers, it's like me going through the whole gospel message with you right now, as if you were not believers. But I know you are.
And if you have non-believers in the crowd,
Sure.
then you should.
But only if God leads you that way, right? You have to go where God leads. And so sometimes it gets to be too much. So sometimes, like I said with Matthew, that's why he always says Christian movies are boring. So I thought, hey, would he watch some of these ones? These were generated by a computer. So let's see what he says afterwards. And maybe we'll report next week what he said. So I'm just going to close this section off, and then we'll thank everybody on the stream. But let's just pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we had to gather here together, Lord, and just go through these current events. And Lord, I'm praying in the name of Jesus that you help us to see that there's so many things in this world, but Lord, we cannot conform to the patterns of this world, Lord. But we need to have our minds transformed by you, Lord, by reading your word, by having your Spirit open up things to us, God. And so that we will not follow those things of the world, but we'll follow you, God. And so when it comes to our music or our entertainment or whatever it is, God, that we will always be following you. Especially we're praying right now for the children as they're going back to school, and this topic came up. Lord, that you would bless the children, God, as they're in school. And Lord, I pray that you help all the parents who are believers, God, to take a stand and to stand for what they believe, God, in you. And Lord, that they would train up their children in the way that they need to go. Because we have that promise, Lord, that if we're training up our children in the right ways, they will not depart from it. Again, we thank you that we had this time to just discuss these current events. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, everybody who's on the stream. We appreciate you being a part of the service.